Hi, my name is Tania Pattison. I'm editor of IATEFL's Voices magazine, and I'd like to welcome you to this session. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Voices is and how you may want to get involved in writing for Voices. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Okay, here we go. So how to write for IATEFL Voices. First of all, this is a recording. I live in Canada. It's currently 3 o'clock in the morning where I am. So I am recording this a couple of weeks in advance of the conference. As you go through this, don't feel that you need to take too many notes because I have put these slides on my own website, which you can find at taniapattisonediting.com. And also, please don't hesitate to contact me. I've given you 2 email addresses here, and you'll see those again at the end of the presentation. So let's get started here. So first of all, what is Voices? If you're new to IATEFL, first of all, welcome. But Voices is IATEFL's magazine. It comes out every 2 months. It contains a lot of articles written by IATEFL members and members of associates around the world. This is the current issue, the May-June issue that you're looking at right now. And it's available in print format or in digital. And when you join IATEFL, you have the option of how to receive it. So when you open up an issue of Voices, in every issue you're going to find articles written by people who are involved in ELT. That could be teachers, it could be teacher trainers, researchers, materials writers, managers of language schools, and so on. You're going to find reviews of new products, new textbooks, new methodology books. You'll find information about your special interest groups. IATEFL, as you probably know, has 16 SIGs, and they all make a contribution in various issues of the magazine. There's also a regular feature about the associates. If you're in a country that has an associate that's connected with IATEFL, you may have seen information about what's happening in your part of the world. You'll see a list of upcoming conferences. That list has been pretty short in the last few months, last year or so, as you can imagine, with everything that's going on. But I'm certainly hoping that as this year progresses and as we get into next year, face-to-face conferences will start coming back. And you'll find information about those in Voices. And contact information if you need to reach somebody at head office or a SIG coordinator or something like that. That is also in the magazine. I'm always looking for good articles to publish in Voices, but what's in it for you? Why should you write for Voices? I think first and foremost, it allows you to share your ideas with members of the IATEFL community around the world. It enables you to become an active member of IATEFL, and it gives you a publication for your own CV. I'm often contacted by people who are trying to remember what issue they published an article in because their university needs to have a list of everything they've published or everything they've presented, that kind of thing. So please do think about becoming involved and writing for the magazine. So the next question is, what can I write? And most people who send in individual contributions to magazines, to Voices, they're writing articles often about something they have done in their own classroom. They may have come across a problem that they've found a solution to. They may have tried something new in their teaching. If that's the case for you, Write it down, tell us about it. People will be interested. Think about how readers around the world will be able to learn from what you have done, how they can apply your ideas to their own contexts. And I'll show you some examples of that in a few minutes. Most articles that we publish are up to about 1,600 words. Some are a little bit shorter, and it also depends on how many pictures you include as well. A 2-page spread can usually hold about 1,600, but if we're adding a lot of diagrams or pictures and charts and so on, then that number drops a little bit. I just want to say a couple of words about research papers. Voices is not a journal. We don't publish a lot of really academic pieces that have long lists of references and that are written in a very academic style. This is not to say that you cannot write about your research. We really welcome that. But try to keep it practical. Think about what is the takeaway for somebody reading your piece? What can they learn from it? Okay, so let's look at a few examples of papers that have been published within the last, maybe the last year or so. So the first one I'm going to show you is by Silvana Acado, and Silvana teaches primary school English in Argentina. And what she's written about here is literature, using stories, using different genres of stories and poems and so on with young children. And she's also sent some great examples of what her own kids have been doing. So this is in issue 276. If you want to go and look back at any of these issues are all available on the IATEFL website. What is nice about Silvana's paper? First of all, what she's saying is grounded in theory. She's got some theoretical information there, but it's a very practical paper. She's giving teaching tips. How she applied this theory to inform her own teaching. She's writing about a specific context. She's from Buenos Aires. She's writing about primary schools for Argentinian school children. But what she is doing is really applicable to any context. Anybody around the world can use her ideas. And she's got some great visual interest as well with the kids' artwork. I'm going to talk a little bit later about photographs, but using photographs of children is a problem, and I'll get to that later. But we're not seeing any kids here, we're just seeing examples of their work. The next paper I want to show you, Silvana was talking about young children. Here we're at the other end of the scale, we're talking about university students. And this is Carlotta Dell'Arte. She teaches at the university level in Italy. And Carlotta is asking a very timely question. We're in this global pandemic situation. Everybody's teaching online. Large-scale university courses have gone online. Should that continue after the pandemic? And this is issue 280, that's very recent. The thing I like about Carlotta's paper, first of all, she addresses a very clear question, and obviously it's a very timely question. She presents a point of view that may be a little bit unexpected. A lot of people are saying, oh, we're teaching online, I can't wait to get back into the classroom and meet my students face to face. What Carlotta is saying is that online education at the university level, in her words, may become a valid alternative to on-site teaching. And she goes on to tell us why. She's got lots of strong arguments and actual examples of why this might actually be a good idea. The next paper I want to show you is by Reddy Sekhar Reddy G, and this is a paper from India. and specifically about academic writing among Indian scientists. And again, feel free to look this up on the IATEFL website. It's issue 277. The thing that I liked about Reddy's paper, a very clear problem solution approach. He addresses a real problem that he was seeing in his own students, in that they need to be able to publish in scientific journals and so on, but they were lacking the writing skills to do that. So he came up with a course that he designed to give his students these academic writing skills. And he describes exactly what he did in this course. Again, with a grounding in theory, but very practical. And Reddy's ideas could be applied by anybody teaching ESP in different contexts can certainly learn from what he's done with his own students in India. The final paper that I want to show you is by Matthew Donley, and Matthew's in Hong Kong. He is a manager. And this is a very interesting paper because it's a little bit different. He's talking about communication skills between managers and teachers. And issue 276, if you want to go and look it up, what Matthew is saying is that because we're in this unprecedented time, this global crisis, communication between managers and teachers is different. There are challenges that did not exist before, with all the fear and the anxiety and teachers not knowing what's going to happen to their classes and what the future might look like. So he comes up with some very specific guidelines for managers for how to communicate with their teaching staff. It's a new situation. Matthew's got something new to say here, and something that I think a lot of people in managerial positions will relate to. And he's got some very specific examples in here. Don't do this, or don't say this, say this. So do have a look at that one. Okay, sometimes I get inquiries from people who would like to write a series. And this is a great idea. I've been editor of Voices for about 3 years, and we've published a few of these. So if you have something that you would like to write a series on, please get in touch with me. I'm just going to show you a couple of examples of things that we've had. The first one is Hall Houston. And Hall had an idea for a series about YouTube channels. And there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that's designed to provide ideas for teachers and so on. So Hall has gone through all of those channels and picked out the ones that he thinks are the most useful. And he writes about how you can access these YouTube channels, what the presenters are doing with them, who it's for, and so on. Walton Burns, who's based in the US. Walton is a self-publisher. He has his own independent publishing company. And he wrote a 2-part series a couple of years ago now on how to self-publish your own materials, which was really fascinating. And I know I learned a lot from that as a materials writer. More recently, Michelle Ocriciano, she's in Australia. She wrote a series a year ago when people were first getting to grips with all this online teaching, and suddenly I have to put my course online and I don't really know how to do it. So she has a 3-part series that gives very practical advice in how to develop an e-learning course. So if you have an idea for a series like that, please do get in touch. Let's talk about it. We have a series of articles called What's Happening In. And I should say that we've kind of let this slide a little bit for the last few issues, just because of the pandemic and everybody's been writing about adapting to teaching online and so on. But I would like to bring this back. And this is typically somebody who is based in a specific country will write about, um, what's going on in that country, what are the challenges, how is English taught, and so on. Oh, excuse me. So the one that you can see here is by Ali Jau, and Ali is in Guinea-Bissau, West Africa. This is a country that has low resources, has certainly some challenges in terms of infrastructure. So Ali wrote a really interesting piece on what's happening in that specific country. Samuel Lefevre wrote about Iceland. Vivi Bairami wrote about Greece. If you would like to write an article about your own part of the world, please get in touch with me, because I'll be able to tell you what we've already done and give you some guidelines in how to approach it, what kinds of things to talk about. Some of the pieces that we publish are quite personal opinion pieces, and that's great as long as it's respectful and polite and so on. These can be really fascinating. These are often a little bit shorter, maybe one-page articles. But for example, Zhisheng Wen, or Edward Wen, he's in Macau, and he has a lot of experience organizing conferences and professional development events and so on. And he wrote about what he got out of doing that, why that has been an important part of his career. Sandra Linden, she wrote a very personal piece about how she always wanted to be a teacher since she was a little girl, and she believes that it's really important for teachers to be kind. And it's a lovely piece. She's got some very personal anecdotes in there. Olga Kuznetsova, she's in Russia, and she also wrote a personal piece praising somebody that she worked with who really changed her way of thinking about teaching. She was trained in a very traditional approach, and then she started reading and going to seminars and eventually a conference and so on, and learned a lot more about different approaches to teaching. So again, it's a personal piece, and it was really interesting to read what she has to say. The last thing I want to talk about is materials reviews. If you pick up an issue of Voices, you'll see that there are, in every issue, there are reviews, usually for different books or different kinds of resources. These are a little bit shorter, they're about 300 words each. And the person who takes care of that is our reviews editor, Ruby Verdian. And I've given you her email address here. And I know she'd be happy to hear from anybody who's interested in writing a review. So if that's something you'd like to think about, maybe you're the first time you write something for the magazine, get in touch with Ruby and she'll match you up with something that matches your own interests. Okay, so before we finish here, I'm just going to talk a little bit about how to go about like the next steps here. Feel free to send me an article at any time. We usually work a few months in advance. So if you send me an article this month, it may not be published until maybe, excuse me, until maybe the November or January or so on. But send an article anytime. Doesn't have to be complete. If you have an idea, if you've got some notes, get in touch. Let's talk about it. Papers should be sent as a Word attachment. We also like to publish a photograph of you and a very short biography, 40 words or so, just to tell readers who you are, where you work, and so on. Your paper should not have been published anywhere else. We did have a case recently where somebody did did publish something that had already been published. And that's fine as long as you have the permission of the place that published it first. And in this case, we did, so no problem. I mentioned earlier the problem with photographs. If you are taking photographs of, for example, your students, and you want to include those with an article, get their permission. You have to have permission of people who are in photographs. It gets a bit difficult with children. We can't publish pictures of kids unless we have written permission from the parents or the guardian. So be careful if you're sending pictures of of individuals. If you can't get pictures, don't worry, there are workarounds. We use a lot of stock pictures. Some of them come from free websites, some we pay for. But don't let that stop you. But just keep in mind that we do need permission for that. And the final thing I just want to say is that you retain copyrights over your paper. So if you publish in Voices and you later want to republish in a different magazine or on your own blog or somewhere, that's fine. It's your paper to do with as you choose. The only thing we ask is that you credit IATEFL and Voices as the original publisher. All of this is on the IATEFL website. Go into, you'll have to log in using your username and your password, and you should find the guidelines there. But if you do have any questions, please contact me and I can send you a copy, or we can talk about anything that's not clear. So just before I finish, I just want to, as I was putting this presentation together, I used a lot of examples from the last few issues of Voices, and it really struck me how many countries were represented here, starting from Argentina and then various countries ending up with Australia. So everybody is very, very welcome to write for Voices. It may be your first publication, you may have published many times, but really everybody is more than welcome to send a paper or get in touch to talk about some ideas that you have. So finally, I'm just going to show you my email addresses again. My IATEFL address is just editor@iatefl.org, or feel free to use my personal one, Tania@taniapattison.com. And good luck. Good luck with your writing. I'm really looking forward to receiving lots of papers as a result of this conference. And thanks for listening, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Okay, so as I said, enjoy the rest of the conference and have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.